Joining us here today. My name is Cody Weyhofen, and today we're going to be getting into AI. So what is it, how can we use it, and what are some of the ethical considerations that we need to be mindful of? So this is part one of a two-part series. Myself and Mr. Ayyoub Ajmi, we're going to be going into really what is AI and how can we use it. And then in the second part, myself and Miss Danielle Drake are going to be discussing some of the ethical obligations. So before we really get going here, just take a minute, introduce ourselves. Like I said, I'm Cody. I am a commercial litigation associate at Seigfreid Bingham. I do a lot of employment law work, licensing, trademark, intellectual property rights, things like that. I've, over the past 5 or 6 years, really taken a deep dive into AI and how it's honestly really shaking up the entire legal industry. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and looking forward to a good afternoon.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayyoub Ajmi. I'm the Director of Legal Innovation and Technology at UMKC School of Law. In 2 days, it's going to be 10 years since I have been with UMKC. I'm really excited about it. I teach legal technology. I do research in the field. I also build self-help tools for courts. I work with Kansas, Nevada, a little bit of Missouri. Awesome. This is a really good topic. I'm really happy to see you all here, and let's get going.
All right, so if you couldn't tell, Ayyoub is definitely the brains behind this operation. I'm hopefully just going to be able to provide the lawyer aspect of it all. So today we're going to be talking about a couple different things. So what is AI? We're also going to discuss a access to justice component. We're going to talk about some of the practical applications of AI, and then to wrap up, we're going to talk about a few opportunities that you can get involved in the AI conversation and how we can really implement that into our legal practices. So diving right in here, what is artificial intelligence? So short, simple way, short definition is it is the study and practice of computer systems that can replicate human intelligence. Now, AI started around 60 years ago, so think early 1960s. And back then, it was nothing too extraordinary. Think glorified calculator. It was very much a computer programmer feeding a computer a series of if-then statements. So again, nothing too extraordinary. But over the past 60 years, we've really seen an explosion in the development of AI. And that's particularly true in the 21st century. And that's for two primary reasons. The first is going to be the rise of big data, so the ability to store and access massive amounts of data, big data sets. And then the second is going to be the availability of inexpensive computing power. So today's AI, it's better to think of AI as an umbrella term today. And what I mean by that is kind of what I've shown here in this inverted pyramid. So you see all these terms, machine learning, deep learning, transformers, things like that. So those terms are incorrectly used today. I mean, they're often used interchangeably, which isn't necessarily correct. Instead, each of these different terms is a different subfield of AI. And what I've tried to show here on this inverted pyramid is that each of these fields builds off its predecessor. So just as deep learning built off the work done with machine learning, transformers built off the work done with deep learning. And then one final thing about this pyramid. As we continue to work our way down, we're seeing the human element more and more removed from artificial intelligence altogether. So before we get into how we can use AI, we're going to touch on each of these briefly. So machine learning, what is it? So machine learning, it's important to think of, well, it's important to understand that machine learning, it still requires a person to provide an initial data set, all right? So it still has that human element involved. Once the machine learning algorithm has that initial data set, it will study that data, make informed decisions with it, and then learn how to improve its performance in its environment. So the hallmark characteristic of this machine learning stuff, it was the first instance that a computer could learn by itself. I mean, that was truly like revolutionary at the time, all right? but it was still limited. So what I mean by that is it was limited to smaller data sets, so like structured data. So think like the rules of checkers, for instance. I mean, you have a closed checkerboard. There's only 64 squares on a checkerboard, and you can only make a finite amount of moves depending on where you are on the board. Now that was early days of machine learning, but a better example that we're probably more familiar with is like the Netflix recommended for you tab. So I mean, as you continue to watch shows, your machine learning algorithm is going to offer suggestions. So if Ayyoub is watching one show and that machine learning algorithm is like, well, he likes this one, he might like this one. And if he likes both of these, well, he's certainly going to like this third one. There's a caveat to that though. So if you're anything like my household, my girlfriend Michaela loves to use my Netflix account. So it throws my algorithm completely off. And I always know because I will get super educational shows like, Love Island, Too Hot to Handle, super interesting stuff like that. But anyway, so machine learning, first instance a computer was able to learn. Remember that. Now, moving on to deep learning. Deep learning took machine learning to a whole nother level, all right? Unlike the machine learning algorithms where it was a smaller structured data set, these deep learning algorithms, they can process massive data sets like the entire collection of pictures on Facebook. So think about it, like massive, like truly massive data sets. And Facebook is a good example of like a deep learning algorithm we've probably all encountered. So whenever you upload a picture on Facebook, it's going to give you a photo tag suggestion. And what it's doing there is it's processing every picture in the Facebook catalog, and it is identifying, well, that's probably so-and-so. Maybe they want to tag this person in the picture. The way these deep learning algorithms can do that is because they're built on something called a neural network. And these neural networks, they are designed to replicate the logical reasoning function in the human brain. So for any medical savvy people out there, that's going to be the neocortex. Just like the human brain and neurons, these deep learning algorithms, they are comprised of millions and millions of nodes. And these nodes are packed into processing layers. Now, when these deep learning algorithms are doing their thing, they're firing information back and forth between the nodes, passing it to processing layers until it creates an output. One thing you can take away from today, a fun fact, the reason it's called deep learning is because of these processing layers. So the more layers stacked on top of one another, technically the better and the deeper the learning the algorithm can perform. Now, moving on to transformers. Did it get to transformers? Looks like it. All right, thank you. So before anyone gets too excited, we're not talking about like Optimus Prime or Bumblebee here, but still, this is exciting stuff. I mean, at least I think it is. Anyway, these transformers, they took the neural network concept and they built upon it. And transformers, they are able to understand context. They study the relationship between elements in a data set, and they understand how those different elements influence and depend on one another. So just like the words I'm speaking right now influence and depend on one another to convey the meaning of the sentence, this is what these algorithms, or these transformers, are studying. And I mean, the same can be said for like chapters in a book. I mean, the chapters work together to convey the meaning of a book. There are a couple popular transformers that have come onto the scene within recent years, and computer vision, for instance. So that'd be the type of transformer used in a self-driving car. You can think of a few examples of why context would be important there. So let's say you have a self-driving car driving down the highway, and it has to understand that, all right, well, a car in front of me has suddenly stopped. I'm going 80 miles an hour, meaning I'm probably not going to be able to stop in time. There's a car on the left of me. That means I'm going to have to swerve to the right based on the relationship between those different elements. So I'm going 80 miles an hour, car on the left, car in front. What do I do? So in that instance, it's learning, understanding that context between the elements. And yeah, moving on. So conformers, so those are going to be things like voice assistants, Siri, Google Home, things like that. And then the one we all came to talk about today, large language models. And that's going to be things like ChatGPT. So actually the GPT in ChatGPT, so that's generative pre-trained transformer. So again, ChatGPT is a type of large language model, which is a type of transformer. All right, so now we're on to large language models, which represents the tip of our pyramid. And again, this means, and this really is the furthest humans have been removed from artificial intelligence altogether. Now, large language models like ChatGPT are transformers designed to generate and understand human-like text. And they are trained on massive, I'm talking truly massive amounts of written data. So think as big as all the written information on the internet. So truly mind-blowing. And these transformers, these large language models, will study that data and then learn truly remarkable things that have thought to have been limited to humans. So they'll understand writing style, context, grammar, dialect, all these incredible things. The way they do this is by building a model. And within that model, they will calculate the probability of a set of words appearing within close proximity of one another. So think of a simple example here, once upon a blank. I mean, this model would be able to understand, given the sequence of words appearing before it, once upon a, that blank is more than likely going to be time. Now, the truly extraordinary thing about these large language models is that you can limit and define the data set that you want it to study. So the other day, I was playing with ChatGPT, and I asked it, all right, write me a poem about the Kansas City Chiefs, but make it in the style of William Shakespeare. So in a matter of 10, 15 seconds, ChatGPT studied the entire written works of William Shakespeare, studied all the written information about the Kansas City Chiefs, built a model, and then wrote me this. Now, bear with me, this is the first time I've ever recited poetry on stage, but I'm gonna give it a go. In the heartland, where the rivers intertwine, a team doth rise with spirit so divine. Kansas City's pride, in red and gold they dress, the Chiefs they are, by none are they less. Minus the Lions, of course, but I mean, you see what I'm saying there? Like, you can do some truly remarkable stuff with this stuff, guys. And I mean, I encourage you, go out there, play with it. Like, you can write computer code, you can ask it to write poems, draw you pictures, and it's truly demonstrating the creativity and the ability to have imagination that for so long we thought was limited to just human beings. And one thing I want to conclude with here before I hand it over to Ayyoub is that think about how far we've come in 60 years. I mean, we went from the glorified calculators all the way to something that is showing an imagination. And think about where we're going to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, it's just going to continue developing at an exponential rate. And we have to accept that it's not going anywhere. It's going to be a part of our practice, and we shouldn't fear it. It's not going to take our jobs. Now is the time to learn about it, learn to embrace it, and then learn to become better attorneys with it. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ayyoub, who's going to explain how we can be better attorneys with it.
Thank you, Cody. All right, so time already. So before we move forward with those slides, I just want to emphasize a few things. So first, you have some material where we have a list of systems and applications. Those are new. Most of them are new. I have tried many of them, but not all of them. They have not been vetted. I encourage you to try them, but it's always better to try with a separate email, not your professional email, not real data or things like that, just to be clear. However, you may have some concerns about AI, so I ask you to put that aside for a little bit. The next hour will be all about that. So for now, I want you to dream about this technology and what you can do with it for your profession or personal life or whatever else you want to do with it. So I'm going to go through some examples. I have done many, not done many of them, but all of them, the example I will be showing, I have I built them, so I can talk from first-hand experience. I will go through some examples of how we can use AI, and I'm pretty sure that you have done most of the tasks here. I have pretty much tried all of them. And the keyword is productivity. So let's go with productivity, how we can increase our productivity. There is a new survey released by Consensus, which is a global research firm. They surveyed 3,000 employees from UK, Australia, and the US, and about the use of AI and generative AI. I will be using the term AI, but just it's generative AI. It goes both ways. So AI, and the majority, they said that using AI, they saved about 1.75 hours a day in just by using tools, regular tools that you have access to. So using AI can save you time, and I use it all the time, and it saved me a bunch of time. So let's go ahead and go through those quickly, and then we can do some practice. So for research, as you may know, on the side, I put some example of the tools. Those are few. I'm pretty sure there are more. I'm pretty sure there will be more. Some of them will go obsolete, but those just give you some ideas. My experience mainly with ChatGPT, because that's the one I have access to and I have subscription to. I have not bothered try the others because I don't have time. I'm just focusing on one. But I encourage you to try others. I have heard that GP maybe is the best. Sometimes people say Bard is the best. I'm just going to try one of them and see what I can do with it. So all my experience is basically limited to OpenAI, ChatGPT. So with research, as you probably have tried it or have, someone have tried, it really works really well. So it's like a Google, but Google started doing that too. In recent years, when you Google a question, you get the answer. You don't get the link, you get the answer first. That's what ChatGPT can do too. It will give you not just a list of URL and referrals, but it scan those URLs, understand what they talk about, and pick the right sentence that you are looking for in most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't do it well, especially if you use just basic search. So the way it works, like Cody explained, there is a large language models. It knows everything up to September 2021. And the reason why there is this cutoff date, because they need to train the system on a vast amount of data. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of computing. Basically, they need computers. They need millions of computers to do that. It's very expensive, it takes time. But once they do it, then it's a snapshot in time. It's like using the Wayback Machine to check a website. So it knows that website very well because it had a copy of that website, but it doesn't know if that website still exists or not. So that's how research basically works. It can be better if you use fine-tuning. So we have in the material, you can learn a little bit more about fine-tuning. It's basically using the language model to work with your own data. And then you can search your own data. Or you can make it very specialized that our search engine will only search malpractice, for example. You can do that, and you can train the system so it doesn't search the internet blindly. It will search specific content that you vetted for probably, or you trust the content. When it comes to the legal research, it's still in the beginning. It's still not good. As you may know, Case-Text Co-Counsel probably was the first one. They say the first one. I don't really know if they were the first one. I'm pretty sure someone else was doing it too. But they are the one now who have a product, and they were acquired by Thomson Reuters. And they do search, and you can search cases. Professor Callister, the director of the law library at UMKC, did extensive examples on that. He's writing a paper on that. It's a hit and miss in most cases. And you can, again, if you go to the search, it searches something. So if your content is good, probably the search will be good. But if you are missing something, it depends on whatever you are looking for. My example is like doing expungement in Missouri. If you're only searching in CaseNet, that's not going to be enough because you have to use municipalities and you have to look elsewhere. Kind of the same thing. So you may be searching a data that is limited and it will not give you a good answer. Lexis plus AI, they have been talking about it for a year. There is nothing out there yet. There is no date when it's going to be available or if it's going to be available or if it's going to be good enough. So that's why legal research, I'm just going to skip it. So text generation, it's really good, but it's really dumb. It doesn't know what it's writing. It's just write words that sound good, and they are grammatically right way better than I can write. And I love it because it helps me a lot. It saves my time. It's like Grammarly times 1,000 or whatever. So it's really good at text generation, but it does not understand the meaning of the words. It just goes through the language model they have, and they guess what the next word is going to be. And the guess is good. But you still have to put some controls around it. I heard a lot of people will tell me, well, I tried ChatGPT and then it just starts hallucinating, giving me random stuff. Yes, it will. You probably have not used prompts. You probably have not put limit on the search. But once you learn some tricks, it starts doing really the work you want it to do. There are plenty of tools that does text generation, and most of the tools we are talking about are standalone tools. So you have to go to a website, you probably have to subscribe or you have to pay, and you have to do that thing that they provide. And we'll talk about what's the future probably should look like. Text summarization, it does a better job than text generation, because text generation, you probably, at best, it's a first draft. For text summarization, it does really good job. And the reason is because they use natural language processing. It goes through the text, it's put it into small chunks, and it understands the meaning, and then it can pull the best idea. The way they do that, because again, it's a large language model, it have seen it all. They have seen every example of written material, and they have seen every example of how that written material has been summarized, and they just learn how to summarize it. And even when you provide them with new material, it's able to learn, and based on the learning they have, to produce summarization on a new material that they have never seen. So summarization, we talk mainly about text, but it's also about images and about videos. You can put link to a video and it will tell you exactly what's going on with that video. So it's scanned, it does what they call, not OCR, but it will read the text and do the captioning for the text and summarize the captioning and tell you the snippets of the video you are looking for. Data analysis is one thing that it does really well. Working with numbers and code is a lot easier than language and text. So data analysis is pretty good. It generates graphs, can generate reports, and can give you patterns and basically whatever we used to do in Excel and takes hours, you can do it in seconds. Translation is one of my favorite examples to play with. I'm always fascinated about that. It's not new. So Google Translate have been around for years, and it's really good. But it's really limited, because it's limited on the way you have to type. If you have to speak, sometimes it doesn't work really well. But with AI, it just the quality is have improved a ton. You can use text-to-speech, text-to-text, speech-to-speech. So it's a multilingual model, multi-model for language translation, and recognize pretty much any language you can think of. So when you look at the ChatGPT and Bard, they say they recognize 50 languages or more. And then if you read the fine print, they can recognize more than that. But because of ethical concerns, because of bias, because of many things, those are the 50 languages that they have vetted. And they have people who native speakers who can did the test, and they have human loop on the system, and they are sure that whatever the product will produce is pretty good. Facebook recently released their own model, and it does for 100 language, and that also can do more. So my example here, so I speak Arabic and French, and I'm from Morocco, so we speak not traditional Arabic. Our Arabic is mixed of French, Spanish, could be Berber. So basically, I told the language model that my daughter just played the game, and they won, and I'm happy about it in my dialect. And he was able to recognize that and then understand it and translate it into classical Arabic, from classical Arabic to English, and from English to voice, from text to speech. And it did that like in 2 seconds while I'm talking. For me, I always try translation, and always I have to speak in classical Arabic if I want to translate Arabic. It will not recognize our dialects, for example. But it does really good job in that. And you can try any dialect you can think of. It will probably know what you're talking about. Conversational agents, chatbots, we have seen them in a while. We have used them. I hate when I go to a website and I have to talk to a chatbot. It's like, I can say representative, and it's like the agent. Just give me an agent because it's going to be faster. This with AI, it becomes like you talking to a human. It really understands what you're talking about, and it's not limited to a scripted dialogue. It can go beyond what's the data that you feed in it. One example we're talking about is how to build a chatbot using ChatGPT. So it's really smarter and it's really more human. Code generation is the best. So early on, I told you in the survey, you can save 1.5 hours a day. Well, if you are working with code, I can guarantee you can save 50% of the time. I used to always tell people, if you speak English, you know how to code. It was not really true. But now it's really true. You literally can speak and it will code for you. You can just tell it, give me a table with a header that is 5 pixels around it and blue background in HTML, and then boom, it gives you the code. I want it in Python. It will translate that into Python. You can debug an error. If you have a WordPress website and you don't know what that error is, copy the error, put it in ChatGPT. It will tell you what the error is and how to fix it. It's really magical in terms of coding. If anybody should be scared about their job, it should be the coders who build those tools. It's really interesting the way it works. I love those examples. My final example is images and media in general. You probably have seen art created by AI or videos, fake videos. That's all out there. Anybody can do that. It's really interesting, and I love it the way like this. In this example, there is a cyclist in the middle of the road, but there is no lines. So you just select where you want the lines to be, and you tell add yellow lines, and it will do that. And then you can do it, this is embedded in Photoshop, for example. If you have Adobe Photoshop, you can download Adobe Photoshop Beta, it's free, and it has generative AI. You can edit videos. If you don't want to waste time, or if you don't know how to edit video, you can upload the video and tell it, okay, skip the first 10 seconds and stop at 20 seconds and give me the final video. So you can do that. You can fix images and things like that a lot faster. Like if I have to create this image, I can do it. It's probably gonna take me like 30 minutes or maybe an hour to do that. You can do it in like 2 seconds. All right, so early on I talked about some examples when I hear people say, hey, I tried to do this, it gives me something that is not true or it's not accurate enough. That's where prompt engineering comes in. So prompt engineering is how you talk to an AI. And again, my examples are with ChatGPT, but I'm pretty sure it applies to all of them. So when you have a better prompt, you can control the output. And it's like talking to a baby. So you literally have to talk to it's kind of crazy, but you have to talk to the machine. And I use please and all of that and just make sure they're happy. So prompts are composed of a few things. So we have the instructions. You basically set the mood, who you are. You are an AI, you are a victim advocate helping victim of violence. They know who they are and they know how to answer, and you can immediately see that the answer has empathy and apologizing and trying to make you feel good. So that's what the situation is. You create a situation. And then the other thing is the question. It's better not to ask complicated questions and split them into small questions or do step by step. That's the best practice. I can see that. Input data is when you use ChatGPT, if you don't have the subscription, you have to type or you have to copy and paste text. That's an input data. But if you are using a different AI system, or if you have the subscription for ChatGPT, you can upload files. You can upload videos, you can upload PDFs, you can upload Word, any type of file. It will read it. That's the input. So the more input you give the system, the better it will be. And then the other thing you can do are examples. So you will tell the system, write this memo. Here is an example. And then you give your fact, and then you will write a new memo based on your fact following your example. It does it really well. So prompt is becoming like a science by itself. I encourage you to learn more about it. ChatGPT has a lot of resources about that. Microsoft has resources about it. UMKC, we will have an event in mid-March, so I encourage you to stay tuned. Follow me on LinkedIn or get in touch, and I will be happy to invite you. We really want to go deep into this because I think this is the first thing you have to learn so you can talk to the system. And in my examples, we will show you some of that. Cody has talked about most of those. And then this is just a slide, so if you are confused, just pause for a second and think about what you already been doing and tools that you have been using. I can guarantee that all of them have AI in some way. So all of them, the last one is the funny one. When you get to a password and it tells you, hey, click on the bicycle in this picture. That's AI. And guess what? You have been training the AI all those years. So you have been helping the AI get trained, so when it sees a picture with the bicycle, it knows that this is a bicycle and not a car. So that's how we train AI. And this is how it could be used. There are examples where, I forgot which library, but they were able to digitize some ancient language and have people do the OCR by doing the same thing. So when you go to log in, everyone who logged in, they get like maybe 3 characters, and you have to type those characters. And basically, you are doing character recognition for a vast amount of text that has been scanned. And everybody does just 4 or 5 characters at a time. So those are all AI systems that are embedded. So when we talked earlier about ChatGPT and how it is limited to September 2021, if you use a plugin, then ChatGPT can look to real-time data. It can look to news, it can look to more recent information using a plugin. So a plugin is not available on the free version of ChatGPT. So you have to have a subscription which costs $20 a month. It's the best investment you can do. And then you can have access to plugins that are created by OpenAI, and it became like a marketplace. Some people will create their own plugins, and then you can use them. So there are plugins that search specific type of scholarly data. There are plugins that specialize in data analysis, for example. So there is a lot of plugins. Think of it as your smartphone and applications. So you pick what application works for you, and you install it, and then you start using it. Are we good so far? Good. All right. So how all of this relate to access to justice? Well, this is where I do most of my work, and this is what got me into this. So at UMKC, we train students to use technology to boost their productivity, but also we want them to use technology to not just use technology for the sake of office work and basically limited productivity tools, but we want students to use technology to provide legal services in new ways. How can we use technology to improve what we already do? And then instead of doing things manually, how can we automate things? If we automate things, it will be cheaper. We can reach more people. We can help more people. You will free up your time so you can do the hard work that you probably, when you went to law school, that's what you wanted to do. So it's a win-win. I don't like to think about access to justice doing favor to someone. I mean, it's really good market if you get on it. There is a lot of innovation. There is a lot of money to be made. It's an opportunity. That's how I see access to justice. I'm not helping people. I'm working on it, and I'm helping them at the same time. So what can we do to access to justice? We know for sure we have numbers and we have testimonials, we have proof that using technology improve access to justice. When courts adopt guided interviews, judges are happy and excited because they don't have to read handwritten petitions and because they get the right petition for the right matter. And the clerks at the court, they're super happy because they don't have to keep answering which form should I use. In many courts, they are not allowed to even do that. So by adopting guided interviews, for example, everybody's happy. So we know that by adopting chatbots, people can learn about their own matters. They can find where the court is. They know how much it costs to file certain things. So it's all there. And then the other example is it's so easy to buy something or date someone. It's super hard to file protection order against someone you're dating. It's kind of, this technology is out there. Why we are not using it? I mean, this time, there is really no excuse. Everything is out there. It costs less than what it used to cost, and it saves everybody's time. So that's why I try to do. Go through some examples. So we're going to be building a chatbot. My example is, like I said, I work with courts, and I have been privileged to work. UMKC helped Kansas to build their protection order portal, and I was involved since the beginning on that project. And I'm currently working with the state of Nevada. We are building a lot of tools for them. One of them is a chatbot. The idea is they want to offer a chatbot so people can get help while the court is not open, for example, at night. They can ask questions and get answers. But their main concern was this is before ChatGPT. So they were concerned about people getting the wrong information, or maybe the chat will give the wrong answer, or it's just going to be annoying. It will not what to answer, and it will say, well, the court is closed, come back to the court Monday, for example. So those are all experiences that we have with chatbots. So this example, we are using Microsoft Azure. So Microsoft Azure, it's a cloud-based group of services. You may have heard Amazon Web Servers. It's something like that. So it's a bunch of systems that you need to rent from Microsoft to create something. So in our examples, we are using, I can see on my screen. So we have, we need a server, we need a service, group service, and in the service, there is a server, there is a search engine, there is a language recognizer, and then those are all AI powered. So basically what they do is when someone asks a question, they can understand what that question is. We need storage where we're gonna store our files. And then on the right side, that's what I will provide. I will provide the knowledge base. So I will provide a clean Excel sheet that has questions, answers, and follow-up questions. And I'm gonna train this chat in this version. It's very streamlined, so it's not very, very smart. It's kind of a decision tree. So if you ask this question, you get this answer. If you ask it in a different way, there is a risk that you will not understand what you are talking about. So in my example again, I'm asking, we have a welcome message. Hey, welcome to our self-help center. I can help you with those 3 topics. And then usually there is a place where you can type. Hopefully users won't type, because if they type, there is a risk that we can't answer their question. If they use the buttons, the options we give them, we will give them the accurate answer we want them to get. So in this case, they picked one answer, the one question, they get the answer, and they get 3 follow-up questions. If they type their own text, that's where the language recognizer will work, and it will understand what they mean, and hopefully they will match that question to a question that we already have, and then give you a close to that answer. What this chatbot does is, in the end, it keeps track of those answers, and it tells you why answers, and it gives them like a rating from 0 to 1, and how accurate it is, or how confident the system was in providing that answer. So, so you can see the limitations. In the second example, we are doing the same thing using ChatGPT. We are using the Excel sheet, and then we tell the system using prompt, we're going to train the system how to answer our questions. So I go through, you have this in your material, you can look at it. I'm going to go fast because we are almost running out of time. I want to give you time for questions if possible. So we basically tell the system, hey, I'm going to be uploading this file. This is what this file has. Make sure that you get the answer from the column A, and then look up for the answers on column B. So I'm literally telling the system what to do. And then the other thing that I will do, I'm checking their answers, making sure that the answers are correct. And then when I'm feeling that they are not doing what I do, I ask them to explain, I ask ChatGPT to explain how they reach that answer. And that's giving me a hint how they think. And then the issue I was doing, I was not limiting the search to specific column that I have, which that's what I want them to focus on, because otherwise they will just be reading from all the answers, and that's where it may get confused. So I go through it like a series of tests, and then at the end it starts giving me the answer and give me the follow-up in the same language or the same format I told the system to do. So the first example was done in November 2022. This example, I done it maybe in June. And by the time I was done, Microsoft released a chatbot that is out of the box. And right now, you can build a chatbot that can search your own data in less than 20 minutes. You don't even have to do any of what I was doing. So you literally put your own data and then ask questions about that data. And you can make it available to the public if you want. So this is on Microsoft Azure, so it's subscription. You have to pay for it. It's protected. It is not connected to the internet. It does not use your information to train the model. So it's a protected, firewall protected, basically subscription, your own ChatGPT basically. And you can upload as much documents as you want in any format you want, and start asking questions about your documents. So think what you can do with that. All right, I'm running out of time. My last example, it's a protection order, and why I'm doing that, I'm helping users, self-help litigants, write a narrative that could help them in their case. When some victim go to an advocate, they sit next to an attorney or an advocate, and they ask them questions, and they help them. They use their language to create the narrative on what they say, but they help them by limiting what they say, and they make sure they stick to the problem and all of that. So in my example, I created a guided interview, and I'm asking specific questions about the events and about the person you're seeking protection from, about the location, are they violence, do they have guns, and all of that. And I used all of that, and I created a narrative. And if you go to my example, their answers is mixed in French and Arabic. And then the output is all in English, and at the end it tells me, hey, this sentence was written in English, and this is the translation I used. And the way I did this is by using prompts. So the number 3, I think, that's my prompt. And I tell the system, hey, you are a victim advocate, you are helping people create their narrative based on the fact I'm going to tell you, stick to the fact, don't hallucinate, don't come up with something that is not there. If they don't have this, don't do this. If they have this, do this. And then I list the fact. And the fact, it brings them from the inputs that the user are doing. 99% of the time it works. Sometimes it goes crazy and it tells, hey, they are dangerous, they have guns, they don't have guns. So, but it needs more training. This is, again, a quick project I did. I have not spent a lot of time in it, but I'm pretty sure if you need something like that, you can do it. Again, those are just ideas. My last call for you is to join the LTL. So the Legal Technology Lab, it's a program that we are, it has been going on for years, but now we're trying to revive it at UMKC. We bring together attorneys, legal professionals, technologists, to try to see how we can create new things, how we can create a sandbox for you. You may not you may not have access to technologists in wherever you work, or if you don't have you work by yourself. So hopefully we can connect you with someone. And we created tons of projects over the last 6 years since we started, and we are trying to focus more on new tools like this. Sorry it took, I had to speak so fast because I was running out of time. All right.
Questions?
Come on. Questions? Go ahead.
Have you been able to find, say, a particular attorney and have them upload, say, all of their former work product, whether that's through a general search or if they have to find it themselves and upload it, then be able to produce written documents in their own voice? Like, so sort of two prongs. One, can I just search it through the systems you showed me, like online? Would I have to go back and find my work product and upload it to get that?
I think that's fine tuning. So if you rely on ChatGPT in general, it's hit and miss because it's based on a vast amount of data that may not be relevant. If you focus on your own data, especially if you said you have examples, if you have examples, then you literally will get content that look exactly like your example.
That would be, I would have to find mine and upload it.
Yes, and that's where, again, if you do it on not on the free version, not on the openly available, again, they say that they don't keep the information and the information is anonymized, but still, if you use like tools like Azure, that's a subscription model, there is contract, there is privacy involved. Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead.
My name's Sean Lee. I practice in criminal and civil in state and federal court. And I guess my question is two-part. One, can this be trained or can it develop the intent to commit a murder? And two, could it be used successfully as a murder weapon?
That's a very interesting question. So,
Do you want to repeat, just summarize
yeah,
the
just
question?
to reiterate, I want to
And
make sure I
forgot
get
to
this
summarize the
correct
question.
here. You're asking if this technology, so ChatGPT, for instance, can be used to commit a murder. Is that correct?
Think about like some of the bad actors out there. Now, one of them wants Mr. Cody Weyhofen dead. Can they make a super murder robot designed to kill Cody Weyhofen? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing.
Weyhofen. I've heard every pronunciation you can think
And
of. So,
then also, could one of our, intelligent, great, wonderful prosecutors in this state make a case as AI being a murder weapon?
I think, yeah. I mean, to answer your question, I think the possibilities again are endless when it comes to this type of new tech. And I mean, again, like ChatGPT's been around for around 18 months. Is that right?
Well, to the public, but they have been working on it for years.
Exactly. And I mean, there was a story a couple months ago about how a AI bot was able to pass a CAPTCHA. So rather than, those things that I was talking about earlier, rather than passing that, it was able to go on a website and convince someone like, hey, I'm someone who's vision impaired, answer this for me. So in that way, I mean, you are seeing this free thinking imagination where, to answer your question, Sean, yeah, I could see that being a real possibility in the future.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
So as everybody knows the recent story about the lawyers who had the thing with ChatGPT or one of the AI bots write a brief for them. In fact, they were in
Yes.
trouble with
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
So I was wondering though, since it operates on remembered or stored information, why it put sites in the brief that just didn't go with it or just were made up? I didn't know that part of the creativity of AI would extend to just making stuff up that doesn't exist.
So-
In terms of something specific like the law.
Yeah, for the video. The question is about the case someone used ChatGPT to create a brief and turn out to have fake cases. I think Danielle will start her session with that example.
You're way
and
ahead of us.
I will probably let her do that. But one thing, since you mentioned that, one thing I forgot to emphasize, the example I showed you about Azure, the out-of-the-box chatbot, it has citations. So it will give you the answer, and then at the bottom, it will tell you where it gets the answer from. So, and it's,
And then just to also add to that, those attorneys in New York, they use ChatGPT, and again, that's not based on like a legal database like Westlaw or Lexis. So again, it depends on the data set you're using. And we're seeing a lot of these online platforms, and we'll talk about this in the second session. It's an arms race right now to see if they can get a platform where it's trustworthy, where you're not going to have those hallucinations and fake case citations.
Thank you so much. You probably can find my information in the program. I would love to stay in touch with you all. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, great working with you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. My name is Cody Weyhofen, and today we're going to be getting into AI. So what is it, how can we use it, and what are some of the ethical considerations that we need to be mindful of? So this is part one of a two-part series. Myself and Mr. Ayyoub Ajmi, we're going to be going into really what is AI and how can we use it. And then in the second part, myself and Miss Danielle Drake are going to be discussing some of the ethical obligations. So before we really get going here, just take a minute, introduce ourselves. Like I said, I'm Cody. I am a commercial litigation associate at Seigfreid Bingham.